So you are a candidate for the Mars One project. Can you tell us about the project?
So the Mars One project plans to settle the first humans on Mars in a decade. The departure of the first 4 will be in 2026 according to the current plan. There are currently 100 of us left from all around the world, so it's sort of intrinsically an international project. The 100 of us come from all different countries, different backgrounds, speak different languages. Well, we have English in common. And yeah, there will be 10 years of training after they select the final 24 early next year. So we are all looking forward to the final selection, which will take place in early 2017.
How many were there at the very beginning? How many have applied?
So over 200,000 showed interest on the website. I mean, this is an idea which really sparks joy, I think, and enthusiasm. Not everybody is prepared to go on a one-way trip, to go and explore a new world. But I think the captivation of the imagination is something unanimous to everyone that I've spoken to about it.
So although it might be a one-way trip, you're ready to go to Mars?
Definitely. So some people ask how I made the decision, and to be honest, there was no decision-making process. It was absolutely instantaneous. When I read the article calling for citizens from all over the planet Earth to volunteer to go on what will likely be a one-way trip because the technology to come back has not yet been developed. Yeah, there was not a moment of hesitation. Actually, I felt nauseous and ran to the bathroom because suddenly my life not on Earth flashed before my eyes, and I felt like I am the right person for the job.
What made you interested in space in the first place?
I studied physics initially because I wanted to be an astronaut. And now it's strange how the study of physics from quantum theory, which is the very small, now we are actually using open quantum systems models to look at the building blocks of life that have been detected in space. So things like amino acids and nucleobases that make up proteins in our bodies have been detected in meteorites, comets and interstellar clouds. So now we're actually using quantum mechanics to look at things in space. And then I heard about the Mars One project, and it feels like a full circle where now possibly my role as a theoretical physicist could be to do research on Mars for the first time.
What was the election process about? What was the hardest part you had to do?
So I think the hardest part is coming because early next year we will finally officially all meet. The challenge will be to be one of the 24 during the 2-week selection process. We have to study materials and demonstrate how we work in a group. So with particular people in the group, but also in general as a team player. There will be periods of isolation within teams solving problems. There will be lengthy interviews to demonstrate, I suppose, your psychological ability to be calm under pressure, to perform consistently under stress. And these kinds of things will be crucial, of course, for this kind of mission.
Do you also have to be physically strong?
I imagine so. So the astronaut training that NASA, for example, puts their astronauts through is physical in nature. Your body needs to be robust towards a variety of different environmental challenges. The G-force, you actually need strong muscle composition to survive that kind of force. So this year I ran an ultra marathon, 56 kilometers, and that was interesting, but I would perhaps do it again. So I normally keep fit anyway, but I think that is an important part of it, so I have been doing that.
How many women are there among those 100 last candidates?
50. It's by definition half-half.
How will it look like, the trip? I mean, how long will it take? How many people will live there and how will they live there?
So according to the Mars One project, 4 people will go at a time, starting from 2026, and then every 26 months when the home and transfer orbit is taking place, another 4 will leave. That's a window period when it's fuel efficient to send a mission from Earth to Mars. So there will be 4 arriving every 26 months and the settlement will grow. There are other projects who have also proposed to send humans to Mars. So we have now a competition in SpaceX, who has announced 2025 as the date where they would like to send the first humans to Mars. So Elon Musk, the CEO and chief engineer of SpaceX, plans to have a city on Mars. He will announce plans for this at a conference in September where I will be attending, so I'm very interested to hear more about the kind of lifestyle we may be expecting on Mars, with other companies joining potentially. Lockheed Martin has recently announced that they would like to send a crewed mission to Mars also. NASA plans to send return crewed missions in the 2030s. So I think a new era of innovation in space and space technology and science is taking place right now. We're lucky enough to be living in the moment where the space race is back on.
Sounds like it's going to be crowded on Mars.
The more the merrier, I say.
How does a day on Mars look like? I mean, do you sleep 12 hours and wake 12 hours, or is it completely different?
Well, so some planets don't rotate at all. So one side is always facing the sun and the other one is always not. So you have a half of the planet light, half of the planet dark. So there are all these kind of crazy planets that exist. But strangely, Mars has a day, so it orbits on its own or rotates on its own axis in 24 hours and 40 minutes. So if you've ever wanted to sleep in for 40 minutes every morning on Mars, you'll be able to and still have a 24-hour day after that. So yeah, strangely, the day on Mars is not very different to the day on Earth, just 40 minutes longer.
So will you do any experiments in your field of research there if you go?
The kind of skills that we will need to develop during the 10 years of training. I would absolutely love to do all of these engineering tasks, learn skills in doing experiments, growing plants, which will be our food on Mars, of course, and doing all the kinds of engineering duties that we'll need to do to maintain the settlement. But in terms of my research in quantum biology, I think one of the questions in the back of my mind is what is life? So looking at life on very small scales gives us some information on the dynamics, on the processes that take place in living systems. And if we take a step back, the next question is, well, what is life? You know, on small collections of particles, what makes them different from small collections of particles that are living things? I mean, as humans, we can tell very easily if something's alive or not alive, but scientifically, this is still a big open question. You know, what is it that distinguishes life from inanimate matter, which it is made of course. So one of the grand achievements that could possibly take place on Mars for science, in my opinion, the most profound possible contribution of science to society, would be to find evidence of life somewhere else. So this would mean that instead of only having one living system to study on Earth, and all life on Earth, according to genetics, with high probability is related. So from bacteria all the way up to humans, we all share aspects of our genetics in common, and we all emerged from a single common ancestor, at least this is the theory. So what would be really useful to do science about life would be to find another example of the emergence of life somewhere else. On Mars, for example, we have not yet found evidence of life somewhere else yet, but if we did find evidence of it on Mars, it would either be related to us, perhaps ancestral to us, or perhaps completely distinct. But in either case, I think to understand whether we are alone in the universe is really one of the most fantastic questions that we could possibly answer from Mars.
Do you believe there is life somewhere else, or intelligent life even?
So the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and the planet Earth is around 4.5 billion years old, and in 4 billion years we've evolved from sort of some simple single-celled organisms to humans, immensely complex and slightly intelligent creatures. So I believe that in the rest of the age of the universe, sort of biotic chemistry emerged quite soon after the Big Bang, or the possibility for the kind of chemistry necessary to form biological systems happened long ago, billions of years before the Earth even emerged. So I believe there is life out there. Of course, that's just an opinion. We have not yet discovered it. But that's part of the exciting part about leaving Earth, would be to investigate whether we can find evidence that living creatures exist somewhere else also.
Do you have another example what you might find out on Mars?
So the climate on Mars, I'm looking at this current issue of climate change that we're experiencing on Earth. I think the climate on Earth has always been changing, but the unique era that we are living in now is where human activity is actually contributing towards the change of the climate. We can no longer deny this. So what is interesting about studying Mars is that there's evidence that Mars once hosted large bodies of water around 4 billion years ago. So that means it was warm enough to support liquid water. There's evidence that there was a global magnetic field on Mars around 4 billion years ago. This magnetic field helped to shield an atmosphere, which helped to keep in heat, which helped to keep liquid water on the surface. So what happened to Mars? I mean, now it's cold, sort of average negative 60 or 50 degrees Celsius. It's very dry. There's a bit of H2O ice crystals left in the sand, but no oceans, no lakes, of course, because of the temperature. So I think to understand how Mars changed from this warm, wet planet where life could have existed to this dry, hostile, cold desert that it is now is really, really useful for us to understand the future of climate change on Earth. In the very long term, of course, but we need to start looking in the long term if we would like to really sustain our society.